Eagles! Afternoon, all. Big show lined up today. Brian Baldinger from the NFL Network will join us in hour number 2 at 4:30. We will talk to him live from Tampa. He's at the rookie camps, and we'll talk to our friend, get his thoughts on the Eagle draft, get his thoughts pretty much on the Eagle offseason, and then some NFL news, obviously. Brian Baldinger will join us again at 4:30 Eastern time. I want to throw this out to you guys, and, you know, I've been watching the NBA playoffs, and I want to say this because a lot of people sometimes become prisoners of the moment. Last night, you watched Steph Curry and how great he was, and you watch LeBron, you watch Anthony Davis, and you watch athletes, no matter who it is and whatever sport it is. Man, Patrick Mahomes is the greatest. Man, LeBron's the greatest athlete. Man, then you go back and you start talking about Jordan or Bill Russell or Tom Brady. Go back and start talking about Montana. We are such prisoners of the moment today. Steph Curry's a great ball player. He's great. But when you talk about guys who take games over, you think that's Larry Bird? You think that's like Jerry West? You think that's Jordan? He was great last night. I was just talking to Tone. I think what happens is as we get older and as we put more time on an athlete's career, like, let me ask you this. Who would you think personally right now had a better Eagle career? Randall Cunningham or Donovan McNabb? Who had a better Eagle career? I think it's too early to talk about Jalen Hurts and his career, but who do you think had a better career? Because time now, you could sit here and have a legitimate debate. You can't have a legitimate debate on how great you think Steph Curry is. I think time is the thing that really gives us more of an opportunity, an objective view on how we look at athletes. I mean, look, it's easy to be prisoners of the moment. It's just easy. Who do you think had a better career? And when you look back on it, who was the better Eagle quarterback for you, Randall or McNabb? Me? If I had to win a ball game, I'm picking Randall Cunningham. He could do more. Randall Cunningham was a better ball player. And see, I think some of this is generational. Now, I actually played against Randall, so maybe I'm a little bit more biased. Randall Cunningham was a special. If Randall Cunningham played today, he'd be Patrick Mahomes. He'd be that kind of guy, Patrick Mahomes. Randall sucked in the playoffs. Randall never had the talent around him that McNabb had around him, especially in the O-lines. That's not what the Eagle organization was. It was one of the worst of all time. Randall did more with less. So my point is you have to put everything in perspective. That's why we're starting it out here. You know, I'm hearing people go, Steph Curry's the greatest. Man, he's the greatest shooter of all time. I'm like, man, I'll tell you what, really better than Larry Bird. And I'm a Magic Johnson guy. Larry Bird was the best shooter I've ever seen, the best clutch shooter I've ever seen in my life. Best clutch shooter, passer, everything. He did everything. Bird was spectacular. You think Curry's the same passer that Bird was? Man, I'll give you this on Steph. He's probably a better perimeter shooter, but a better ball player? Absolutely not. Now, again, it's not fair because Steph's not done yet. Steph's not done. So there's a little more to be written here with his legacy. Again, just prisoners of the moment. I think that's just the way the media is. Again, every decade has that. Oh, Jordan's the greatest. Now you forget about guys like Jerry West, and you forget Dr. J, and you forget about guys like that. Or you move it up a little bit, Barkley and Jordan and Clyde Drexler and those dudes. You forget it. It's so subjective. Watching LeBron last night, I mean, now here's the narrative on LeBron. Well, he's too old. Well, Jesus, he's 40. I mean, what do you want? LeBron James and Tom Brady are the greatest longevity players I've ever seen in their respective sports. It bonds you with throwing baseball. I mean, today's athlete, the longevity that these guys have, like LeBron James and Tom Brady, it's remarkable. It's remarkable on how well they play. All right, so it looks like the schedule is going to be coming out on Thursday as it was supposed to. And from what I'm hearing, Eagles and Jets, week 2. Okay? Or maybe week 1. Could be Sunday night. Eagles and Jets. Chiefs and Jets are being talked about. See, I think that Thursday night game is coming down between Jets and Eagles. And then I think the Eagles are probably going to play on Sunday night. Would they put Dallas in the 2-hole there? Would they put Dallas Sunday Night Football to open the season? Would they? Chiefs week 2. Eagles and Chiefs week 2. Eagles and Jets. No, that's going to be Jets and Chiefs. I think it's going to be Jets and Chiefs to open up Thursday Night Football. How about Eagles and Cowboys to open the season? Cowboys too early? Come on, man. I want to get out of the gate. What a bit. Hey, both quarterbacks healthy. You see what I'm trying to fight? I don't want to see Cooper Rush stuff. I don't want to see Cooper Rush. You know, I saw that too, Greenblood. Kelsey's mom said she's for the Eagles in week 2. How about this? Do you know? Wait till we get to the schedule and what people are saying about the Eagles schedule this year. We're going to get to the topics. By the way, again, just to remind you, Brian Baldinger, hour number 2 at 4:30 Eastern time. We got a ton of stuff here too. Strength of schedule. How they're going to put all of these chess pieces in place here. Who has the strongest schedule? Also, an early look at some of the talent, all 32 guys that'll be in next year's draft. And Big Sil's 2023 predictions for the entire NFL. We're going to do that. All right, so let's get on to the topics here. First topic. Would you bring Nick Foles in? 21-11 as a starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. And, of course, Super Bowl MVP. Would you bring him in? Nick Foles. Have him as, get rid of Ian Book. Put your guy, the guy you drafted, have him as an inactive. Nick Foles is your backup. I would take Nick Foles over Mariota. Wouldn't you? As my backup quarterback. Who would you feel more comfortable? Let me ask you this. Who would you feel more comfortable if a disaster happened? Marcus Mariota or Nick Foles is your quarterback in Philly, who's 21-11 and a Super Bowl MVP. There's something magical about the city of brotherly love with this guy. He plays great football in Philly. He plays great football. Mariota over Foles? Really? Foles had his shine? Okay. Foles can and did win it all. Don't you think a guy like Nick Foles could be somebody that Jalen Hurts could lean on? When he comes over to the sidelines, sitting there talking, having someone like that, like Alex Smith was to Patrick Mahomes early in his career. You know, Jalen's still early in this process. You're telling me you'd rather have a failed quarterback as the backup quarterback versus a guy who captured the ultimate prize. There's no threat of him taking that job. There's no threat of guys whispering in the corner. He's beloved in the locker room. Two of the most beloved guys in the history of Philadelphia Eagle football, Jalen Hurts and Nick Foles in the quarterback room. You think that's a bad idea? I think, to me, the more knowledge you have. So wait a minute. Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni, Nick Foles, and Jalen Hurts in your quarterback room. You don't think that's a good look and bringing more experience to an offense that lost a coordinator? I do. Would you want to see that? You think the Eagles are thinking of it? Ian Book. Come on, man. Ian Book sucked at Notre Dame. I mean, the kid they drafted from Stanford kind of liked Foles a little bit. Can you imagine Nick Foles and Jalen Hurts in that quarterback room for that young quarterback too? Do it. And then get this. Who knows? Maybe a team mid-season comes to you like they did for Joe Flacco. Hey, we need a quarterback. How much and what would you give up for Foles? I'll give you a third rounder for him. Fourth rounder for him. Okay. Desperation. How many times do we see desperation happen midway through the NFL season when a quarterback goes down? I don't think you can have too many of them guys. I think the more people you have in your quarterback room, the more assets you have potentially to be able to make trades for or with. S. Blunt goes, calm down, Sills. We're not interested. So you're trying to tell me you don't think Howie goes over every single blade of grass in his front lawn when it comes to the construction of this team. You're out of your mind if he hasn't thought this, or the organization, or the owner, or anyone else has thought this. You're out of your mind. That's not a guy who leaves an I undotted or a T uncrossed. He doesn't do that. You know they've debated it. Whether it's a long debate, maybe they're waiting to get closer to camp. Okay? Maybe they're waiting to get closer to camp. Can you imagine? Get this. You think the 49ers, I know 49er guys are in here. You think the 49ers would have loved to have had Nick Foles as a backup quarterback when Purdy went down? I'll tell you what, I'd feel a lot better than him, than Josh Johnson or Christian McCaffrey finishing the game for me. Okay? The more you have experience in that room, it's the best chance you have of avoiding disaster. Marcus Mariota, I don't have a problem with him, but I think it's an upgrade with Foles. Again, I'm not asking Nick to come in here and compete for a job to try to beat Jalen. That's not what I'm asking him to do. He's my lifeboat if something goes sideways. I want a lifeboat. Cooper Rush was a lifeboat last year for the Cowboys. Saved their season. It saved their season. It did, right? Saved it. He went on to win what was he, 4-1 when he ran into Philly? You got to look. Hey, the Eagles the last 2 years have been awful lucky. Awful lucky when it comes to the health of the football team. Okay, hey, S. Blunt. See, S. Blunt, he has no caring right now. Jalen Hurts goes down, your season's over. Your season's over. Think about that. It's the only position, and it's the only issue that could derail the Eagles is if Hurts goes down. If Hurts goes down, your season's over. Over. You have no one in that locker room that can win games. Over. But you'd rather run into a building with Marcus Mariota and Ian Book versus a guy who ran through the tape for you. Okay. You got it. Hey, M. Blunt, you better hope that guy plays and is healthy, unlike he's been the last 2 years. He's missed games. He's going to miss more games. You're not under the guise here that Jalen Hurts is going to play all 17 games this year, are you? He's not. He's never. He's never played a full season because he's been injured. Off topic, Sills. Do you know that in 43, the Eagles and Steelers? Yes, I do. They were called the Steagles? I do know. It was because of the war. Absolutely. One of the great histories, and you should see some of the football cards from back in that time. Absolutely. We'll see. All right. Let's move on to this topic here. We kind of broached this yesterday a little bit. Is it my impression or my observation? Why is Howie doing more for Nick Sirianni than he did for Doug Peterson? Why? What has Howie learned? Howie was not this good of a general manager with Doug. He was not. He was not this good a general manager with Doug. A lot of them were hired assassins as well. But why is Howie doing more for Nick? Putting more talent on the team for Nick than he did for Doug Peterson. Why? Is it because there was a power struggle between the two still? Howie didn't have the equity that he has now as a general manager? Was it that those two were on even ground when it came to the owner? Why is Howie doing a better job now for Nick? Is it because it's his show and it wasn't his complete show when they won the Super Bowl in 17? What's changed? Doug won a Super Bowl. Team fell apart. The team, from the time the Eagles won the Super Bowl, it began to unravel immediately. It was unraveling. The relationship between Doug and Howie unraveled. The relationship between Wentz, Howie, Doug was unraveling. What happened? Why was Howie not the same GM? What was there pushback from Doug? Howie is a completely different general manager today than he was when Doug was here. What's the difference? What's the difference with Roseman now versus Roseman with Doug Peterson? This is an observation. You know, I went back and I looked and I'm like, man, that team just kind of fell apart. Guys win a Super Bowl and it just continued. And it was like a downhill snowball just rolling. It was just rolling. And it was going nowhere to ending up being a 4-win season. That's kind of unbelievable from where that 4-win season and where you are now. But what was the number one factor in why that thing fell apart? And why is Howie better today than he was with Doug? He's clearly giving Nick Sirianni every opportunity to succeed. He's totally giving him every opportunity. What's the change? What has been the change in Roseman? They are more aggressive now. That's for sure, Dual Threat says. Welcome to Howie's house, Omar says. I heard Doug wanted all the power. Well, he was never going to get that because Doug was never going to get all the power because the blueprint had been put in place by the owner. Joe Banner and Andy Reid were partners. Maybe Doug wanted the relationship that Andy and Joe had, and it was never going to be. And Howie didn't want the relationship. It just seems it's completely changed. Do you think Howie, for Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, to choose him, had to make compromises to the owner and that he had to listen more? Do you think he had to sell Jeffrey Lurie on why to keep him over Doug? And Doug didn't want, remember there was a meeting at the end of that year. They were having meetings and the owner and Doug were talking. By the way, I think the owner still to this day reveres and loves Doug Peterson. He just chose him. Why? Do you think Howie really had to make the pitch? Firing a Super Bowl coach, that's not the easiest thing on the planet, especially when you're talking about some of the greatest success in the history of the franchise. Roseman learned to draft best player, not needs, and listen to his coaches. Also, Doug could not keep his team healthy. Nick keeps his team healthy. Yeah, but don't you think, Kyle, that's more of an organizational thing? Arthur says Howie has always been good, if not the best GM. I think after Wentz's implosion, they decided with Hurts pick and Rager debacle to go with better schools, no more North Dakota nonsense. Could be. That's getting smarter and learning from your mistakes. They have Chip all the power. Then Doug came. Doug won the Super Bowl and then wanted more power. Jeff and Howie chose another direction. What direction was that? Because it's the right direction. I'm not saying it's not the right direction. Howie wants a statue out front, Dirty D. He keeps it up. He'll have a Theo Epstein trophy out front of Lincoln Financial. Like Theo Epstein is going to have one in Boston and Chicago. John says, do you think Howie is going after Bubba Baker? No, too expensive. He's not going to pay that kind of money for a safety. He would have given Gardner Johnson the money. By the way, we will talk with Brian Baldinger on that. It's not a soap opera, Steve. It's a question. He's killing it. Roseman's killing it. It's not a soap opera. By the way, I'm not creating drama here. I'm asking a question. Why is he better today? How? And he wasn't this guy with Doug. It's a question about the evolution. By the way, it's a conversation about your evolution of your general manager into making decisions that he's landed on every pod, and it's been right. It's not drama, dude. It's actually a great story on where your GM is and where your franchise is. It's not a drama, dog. It's what he's gone through. Okay? It's what he's gone through. It's totally not drama. Sills, it's funny. You ask one thought-provoking question, and the chat gets up in arms. Yeah, because you know why? They don't want to have to think about why Roseman is where he is. They just want to crown him the greatest general manager of all time. And he's not. He's evolved into doing an amazing job. Let me tell you this. Jalen Hurts gets hurt, and your season goes to 7-10, you'll be shitting all over this guy. Mark my words. By January, you'll be shitting on that guy because that's how fans are. And don't tell me anything different. You're quick to judge. quick to praise. Whenever time you kind of come up with something that has to make you think about where this guy's come from, Howie Roseman was not revered like this. The decision-making that he's making with free agents, I've never seen. You know, the only other person, there's two of them, that I've ever seen that land on free agents like this, they were George Allen and Al Davis. I've never seen an organization land on free agents that come into your organization and kill it. Never seen it. Never seen it. Al would bring in Matuzak, Alzado, Ted Hendricks. They would bring in all these players, Jim Plunkett, and they would go on and win Super Bowls with them. That's kind of what you're doing here. It's kind of like George Allen, Al Davis-ish. You bring in these hired guns in, especially on the defensive side. How did this guy get like this? How about this? Do you guys think he was as good a GM as he is now with Doug? Answer the question. No one will. Do you think Howie Roseman's a better GM when Doug was here? When you won the damn thing. When you won the Super Bowl, do you think your GM is as good as he is now after losing a Super Bowl? How crazy is that? So you're telling me after you lost the Super Bowl, you think your GM is better today with Sirianni than he was when he won the Super Bowl with Doug? How? How did he? What's changed? Dirty D goes, I think he's better. What do you mean you think he's better? Have you not been watching these moves? And by the way, once again, I'll tell you the most impressive. Let's add to this conversation. What's the most impressive thing Howie Roseman has done this offseason? What's the most impressive thing he's done? I'm going to ask Brian Baldinger this at 4:30. What do you think is the most impressive thing he's done this offseason? Tone's got it. CJ's got it. He did something, folks, that no GM has done. You guys got it. The structuring of that contract is changing of the game. I told you guys, and here, you know, Big Sills doesn't say this much on the show. I was wrong. I have never, ever seen a team pay a quarterback and not have to dismantle their team. Except for this. The constructing of that contract is unbelievable. He's changed the game. He's made how did he get here, though? Again, that's the question. He wasn't like, don't you think if he was this smart, when they won the Super Bowl, the Eagles would be in a better position today? If he was this smart, what's changed? You're trying to tell me, wait a minute, the constructing of the Wentz contract, why didn't he do it then? What? Remember something. When they traded Carson Wentz to Indianapolis, they had a $33 million dead cap hit on their cap. Remember? They had a $33 million cap hit. Biggest in NFL history at the time. Biggest in NFL history. And now all of a sudden, he's the wizard at NovaCare? How? You can't answer it. Something's changed with the guy. The Ravens had a chance to copy the deal, and they still couldn't manage the cap hits like the Eagles did. Unbelievable, too. Unbelievable. If I'm an owner of a football team and my general manager doesn't construct these contracts like the Eagles did with Hurts, say I'm the Spanos family and I'm dealing with Herbert, or the Brown family dealing with Joe Burrow, and you don't have a deal like Hurts, I'm firing my GM. I'm firing him because that contract is going to keep you relevant. The Jalen Hurts contract that Howie Roseman constructed, keeps you relevant for the next decade. It's remarkable. Howie got hometown talent like Reddick and Swift. He simplified. If not, overthink. Sirianni pushes the connection theme. Howie's buying in now. You know what, though, Arthur? I'm going to give you what I think the difference between Howie's relationship with Doug and Howie's relationship with Sirianni. In my opinion, I think Nick feels he works for Howie, whereas Doug had an adversarial relationship and thought they were both on even ground. Does that make sense? I think Nick feels he works for him and not with him. You see, you don't have that dynamic in most places. Mike Tomlin doesn't work for the general manager in Pittsburgh. He doesn't work for the GM in Pittsburgh. Okay? He doesn't. Most people, John Schneider, Pete Carroll doesn't work for John Schneider. I think what they have done in Philadelphia, this is Howie's ship. Howie probably, would we agree? Howie probably has more control than any general manager outside of Jerry Jones. Is that fair? He's the most powerful general manager in all the NFL. Would that be a fair comment? Again, Belichick right now, get this, he's being questioned on personnel moves and coaching moves. And here's a guy that's won 6 Super Bowls. He's being questioned by Bob Kraft. Give me another guy. Andy Reid, he leans on Veach in Kansas City. I think Veach probably works for Andy Reid. Okay? I think that dynamic in Kansas City is a little different. Andy probably has complete power. Because remember, he got rid of John Dorsey. John Dorsey has a horrible bedside manner, great evaluator of talent. He's the guy that found Mahomes. Remember, John Dorsey's the guy that found Travis Kelce. He's the guy that brought those guys in. Sirianni knows how to play to Howie's better nature, but Frank Reich definitely gave him the inside scoop in maneuvering in Philly. That was so set on our program the first time that we were talking with Frank. That's exactly right. Frank prepped him. Hey, you want to be the head coach of Philadelphia for a long time? Don't do what Doug did. Don't fight him. Join him. And that's why the Eagle organization likes Frank Reich. And that's why the owner chose Howie Roseman. I personally think Howie went to him and said, listen, this is how we're going to do this. We're going to hire coaches. Because at the end of the day, Jeff, when you hire a coach, I would say this to you. The owner has the say in who the coach is. Howie brings the candidates in. And I think that's how that dynamic works. And I think Jeffrey Lurie takes tremendous pride in the fact that he's hired successful coaches. Even Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly has a winning record in Philly. He has a winning record in Philly as a head football coach, and he sucked. Seals, do you know if Hurts' contract is similar in structure to Mahomes'? It is. I told you it was going to be exactly constructed the same way, front-ended. Hey, here's the thing, too. Relative, Jalen Hurts' contract is probably going to be outdated in 3 years. Could be 2 years. Look at Mahomes' deal. They're waiting to see what Herbert and Burrow do when it comes to signing their contracts, and I think Kansas City's going to restructure the contract and give him more money. He deserves it. He's underpaid right now, believe it or not. Yo, Sills. Nice, bro. I agree with all you said here. I think he went to the owner. I think the owner takes tremendous pride in hiring these guys. You know, Jeffrey Lurie, since he's owned the football team, hasn't had a coach with a losing record. That's incredible. And I think the owner takes great pride in that. And I think the owner leans on his guy, Howie Roseman, and at the time, Joe Banner, to navigate through. Doesn't matter if Nick Sirianni's the coach or Doug Peterson's the coach. There's a culture that those two men have set. Howie Roseman and the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles are the culture of the Eagles, not the coach. This is not Nick's culture. This is not Doug Peterson's culture. This is not Andy Reid's culture. This is the owner and the GM's culture. How many places can you say that in the NFL? Think of it. Pittsburgh, you think that's Mike Tomlin's culture? I do. Seattle, you think that's Pete Carroll's culture? I do. You know in New England it is. You know in Kansas City it's Andy Reid's. I'm just saying to you, that owner and general manager, the reason why Doug was never going to win was because they are the culture. They're the people that set the tone. They're the straws that stir the drink in Philly. Those two guys. Would we agree that Howie Roseman's a better general manager than Joe Banner was? Would we agree? Would we agree he's a better GM? Andy Reid learned every single thing that he's applying in Kansas City. Not in Kansas City. Kansas City hadn't done shit for almost 50 years. They hadn't won Super Bowls. Shit, the last time they got to a conference championship game, Joe Montana was the quarterback. Andy brought all the stuff that he had learned in Philadelphia to Kansas City. And just so happens they drafted a transcendent player in Mahomes. Dude, this has been a absolute, almost reinventing of oneself. I never thought Roseman was this good. I never did. I'm going to show you how hard it is, what he's doing. If Jerry Jones was such a great general manager, and he keeps telling you he's a great general manager because he's got 3 Super Bowls, why hasn't he been able to duplicate what they did early in his ownership? Why? Because he's not the culture. He's not the culture. He's never created a culture in Dallas. Dallas doesn't have a winning culture. They had it with Jimmy. Jimmy was the culture. They've never been able to replace Jimmy Johnson's culture. Because you know why? Jerry Jones doesn't trust anyone to help him build it like Lori trusts in Howie Roseman. That's why. Jeffrey Lurie is a smarter owner than Jerry Jones football-wise. Who would have thought that? Jerry's brilliant when it comes to business. Jerry's brilliant when it comes to marketing. As a football guy, hey, he can identify players, then he overpays them, and then he gets in the way of the coaches. Is there a better team to cover right now in the NFL? So much content to go through. Yeah, because what they're doing, that's tone. Because what they're doing is they're keeping this train going, no matter if it's Andy Reid, no matter if it's Doug Peterson or Nick Sirianni. The coaches really don't matter in Philadelphia. You got maybe a better coach in Nick Sirianni than in Doug Peterson. I'm not talking football sense. I'm talking about organizationally, with structure. Everyone knows their role. I've given you guys, Tone, you know what my favorite team is in sports history? My favorite team in sports history is that last Bulls title team. And I'll tell you why. Everyone on that organization and in that organization knew their role. Jordan was a scorer. Pippen did all the LeBron work. The centers wore a revolving door, Cartwright, Longley, all them dudes. Jerry Krause had a role in finding guys like Pippen, making deals for Rodman, moving Horace Grant to Orlando. Reinsdorf stood out of the way. Let those guys all do it. There was an hey, those guys bickered. You know what broke the Bulls apart was ego. Every guy was talented. Phil Jackson. I mean, think of this. Jordan's favorite coach of all time is who? It's not Phil Jackson. Who is it? Do you guys know? Do you guys know who Michael Jordan's favorite coach is? Sirianni is an education major teacher. And then he knows the ropes. Tone's right. Doug Collins. They replaced Doug Collins with Phil Jackson, a minor league basketball coach. Was he coaching in the CBA when they hired him? Jordan had to be sold. You imagine how that was? Hey, this guy's going to be the best thing in the world for us to win a championship. Jordan had to believe it. Can you imagine? Okay? Yeah, get this. Doug Collins used to let Jordan cook. Yeah, you know what he did? They won scoring titles, but no NBA titles. Phil said, which one do you want to win? NBA titles or scoring titles? You know, when Phil Jackson got there after that, Jordan never won another scoring title. They won NBA titles because there was a construction of the organization. The Eagles, this owner that you have, I mean, look, here, that's a great list to put together. The best owners in the NFL, Bob Kraft, Jeffrey Lurie. I'm talking football-wise. Bob Kraft, Jeffrey Lurie, the Rooneys. After that, I think you could fill the blank in. Kraft, Jeffrey Lurie, the Rooneys. Chicago's a train wreck. San Francisco makes a lot of dumb moves. Paul Allen doesn't own the Seahawks anymore. Denver, new ownership. It's no longer the Bolins. The Maras, they've struggled the last 13 years, though. RY, the Maras and the Tishes have struggled. The last decade, they've struggled. Doug's building Jacksonville. He is. He's got to change it. But remember, hey, remember what he's got to do in Jacksonville, though. He's got to change the culture. The owner's got to get on page. Balky's got to be on page, the general manager. And the owner. They've never had that dynamic. The only time they've had that dynamic in Jacksonville is when Tom Coughlin was there the first time around. That was the only time they had that dynamic there. It's what they had. Philadelphia has the best dynamic. I'm trying to think of any other play. Pittsburgh. The only problem that you're getting in Pittsburgh now, you're getting this in Pittsburgh. You're getting that, hey, the number one thing in Pittsburgh is Mike Tomlin not having a losing record. Since when is that the standard in Pittsburgh? I thought winning Lombardi trophies were the standard in Pittsburgh. Okay? Right? I thought the standard in Pittsburgh was not the fact that Mike Tomlin. I would take a shitty season for Mike Tomlin if they could turn that thing around. I think Pittsburgh's going to be a surprise team this year. Okay? Steve Biscotti owns the Ravens. Yeah, the Ravens are a good organization. The Ravens are a good one. Howie he's evolving into this really great executive. I'll tell you this. Would we not agree, since the firing of Doug Peterson and the jettison of Carson Wentz and the firing of Jalen Reagor, what's the biggest mistake that he's made so far in the last 3 years? What's his biggest mistake that the general manager's made? What's the biggest mistake he's made? I don't know he's made one. I don't know he's made one. I'm talking since they jettisoned Carson Wentz. Since they cleaned house. Since they got rid of all the nightmare. What has been Howie's biggest mistake? Has he overpaid anyone? No. Let me think. Yet to be determined on the draft picks. Yet to be determined on the draft picks. Okay? So right now, you can't say he's had any failure draft picks since they fired Doug. You can't say that. I won't say that. Like I told you before, Jordan Davis may not be the 13th pick in the draft. He's not a bust. He's not going to be a bust. He's a good football player. Your general manager has made, Robert Quinn? That's such a nothing burger, though. The Robert Quinn move, where you lost the 4th rounder, that's such a nothing burger. Right? I mean, you dumped Wentz. You ended up getting a 1 for him and another high-profile draft pick. You got that money off your book. You got that nightmare out of your organization. I tell you this. He has flipped the script on this thing so fast. Do you know most organizations, in my opinion, they die in purgatory like this forever. They never climb. Look at the Jets. The Jets, 2 organizations had to go and do what? They had to bribe people to come and play for them. You know who they are? The Jets and the Cleveland Browns. Had to bribe 2 guys to come and play for them because their organizations don't have anything remotely close to what they're doing in Philly. It's crazy great. Hiring Jonathan Gannon? Hey, I'll say this to you. I don't like the guy either. I'm with you. Kyle, he did get the team to the Super Bowl, and they were the second-ranked defense in the National Football League. And as much as I don't like to give the guy credit, every year he was in Philly, did he not have a top 10 defense? You know, you may look at it, and we may look at it because we're looking at the micro. Most people are looking at it from 30,000 feet. But if you're looking at what Jonathan Gannon has done as a defense coordinator in Philadelphia, you're inside the top 10 one year. The other year, you're second. I don't know. If you asked any, that's why when the national pundits are talking about Gannon, they think he's some sort of brilliant defensive coordinator. Because look at his rankings. Doubling down on Barnett. I mean, I don't know why they keep him on. I kind of know why they keep him on the roster. Both GMs worked under Howie, too. Of course they did. Get that. Andrew Berry and Joe Douglas were at the NovaCare Center and knew they needed a quarterback to stop the bleeding. How brilliant is that? And they learned the culture where? Dude, not only is Philadelphia becoming a destination for free agents, Philadelphia is becoming a destination for owners to go to and get their executives now. That's pretty remarkable. You're not only developing talented coaches, but you're developing exceptional executives. And NFL people are seeing that. When you want a general manager, I'm going to Philadelphia first. Or get this, I'm going to ask Jeffrey Lurie if I could get his opinion when it comes to who I would hire as a GM so that I could talk to Howie. Who would you hire? Because I want my guy to be that guy. A capologist, a guy who could spot free agents. You know what else I think that he's doing, which is brilliant? Howie will he'll look at rosters of NFL guys on other teams, and he'll look down and go like this. You know, this guy's your white guy. He's a good tackler. Hey, James Bradbury. Dude, what was one of the biggest problems that the Giants had last year? What was it? Their secondary. You let Bradbury go. What does he do? He's a Pro Bowler with the Eagles. Howie goes, I'll sign him. Traded a 4th for Quinn. Traded a 3rd to keep Keeley in the 4th round, but do you believe Hurts is a top 5 elite quarterback year after year and a Hall of Fame candidate? You have to be determined. You have to be determined. I'm going to ask, actually, Brian Baldinger that question at 4:30 Eastern time if he thinks Hurts is elite after one season. I'm going to ask him that. See, I don't. I think he's exhibiting the potential for elite talent, but I don't think a player with 1 year under his belt is elite. Because you said the same thing about Carson Wentz. But you're right when you say this in the observation. Yes, Sills, but Wentz was a different mindset compared to this. It's true. It's true. That observation is true. Okay? The observation is true. This is a different dude to Wentz. Wentz had a lot of shit handed to him. Hurts has been an underachiever and overachiever and had to do a lot more things than what Carson Wentz did. His journey was different. No question about it. Yeah, I get that he shit the bed. But that's not what you were saying after the 2017 season. You were not saying that about him. You were calling him elite. Like you're doing now after one season with Jalen Hurts. I think you've got to do this continually to be given that crown of being an elite quarterback. That goes for Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. Because if those guys go on the same projections that they're on right now, and they're not winning championships, dude, Kirk Cousins, do you know what? I'll say this to you about Kirk Cousins in the NFL. Kirk Cousins is the norm if you don't win championships. Because at the end of the day, what are you going to remember Kirk Cousins for? Never winning big games and putting up a shitload of numbers. That's the standard NFL quarterback. Kirk Cousins is the floor of NFL quarterbacks. Mahomes is the ceiling. Do you understand that? And that floor and ceiling is not that high. It's not that high. Derek Carr was fired. Baker Mayfield was fired. A lot of guys who I'll tell you this, Kyler Murray is under a ton of pressure, I think, this year. And I know he's going to be coming off a knee injury. Son, you got to win at $46.1 million. You've got to win. So is he top 5? Yeah. Yes. Here. I'm good. That's funny, Michael. I'll throw it this way to you about Jalen Hurts. If I had to win a Super Bowl, would Jalen Hurts be one of the 5 guys I would choose from? Yes. If I had who do I think wins a Super Bowl first? Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen? Buffalo's a really great organization. Sean McDermott's a hell of a coach. Question, does consistency plus Super Bowls make you elite? Or is it consistency plus playoff success above 500? And to Tone's question here, well, do you think Peyton Manning was a successful postseason quarterback? You guys think Peyton Manning was a successful postseason quarterback? 14-13. Do you think Peyton Manning at 14-13 was a successful postseason quarterback? Is that success to you? He's one game above 500. Not as successful as he could have been, so you think he underachieved. Aaron Rodgers, 13-12. Brett Favre, 15-14. Russell Wilson, 9-7. So when you talk about success in the postseason, what's Jalen's record? 3-2? That's not uncommon. Not everybody's Brady. Montana's 14-6. There's very few QBs that have spectacular postseason records. So it's hard to quantify that. Super Bowls, showing up in the postseason. That's why I say the word elite to me means consistency. You're always in the game. You're always in the conversation. You always have your team there. Like when you step on the field and Aaron Rodgers is on the field, I don't care what you think of the personality. I hate it too. I still think their team has a chance to win. When I watch Dak play, I think Dak gives the Cowboys a chance to win every game he's in. When I watch Kirk Cousins play, I look at Cousins and go like this. I feel more comfortable with Dak than I do Cousins for some reason. Because Dak will play pretty decent in big games. Cousins doesn't in any big game. Let me ask you this then. Do you use elite too loosely? Do we use elite too loosely in football? Yeah, because you know why? Everybody wants to see your guy be the guy. There's only one Michael Jordan. And when you start using that word elite, it offends me in a way because Hurts hasn't done anything yet, really, to be considered it. Nor has Allen, to some extent, Burrow, Kyler Murray. There's only one elite quarterback in the NFL right now. He's in Kansas City. There's only one. Rodgers, I guess. Those are your only elite guys in the sport. Rodgers has been brilliant for 17 years. Brilliant. Mahomes has been spectacular. Those are elite guys. Not these other guys. I don't care how much money you're making. Look at Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has put together a great resume. He's put together a phenomenal resume. You got to win in the postseason, though, son. Regular season resumes don't translate when you're talking about elite guys and in your place in history. Now, Jalen, here, because I could hear people going, Sil's hating on. No, Jalen's at the beginning of his building of his legacy. He's at the beginning of building his resume. So it's unfair to sit here and go, that's why I said he's not elite right now, but he's showing signs of having the characteristics of potentially being there. It goes down that line. Dude, when I use the word greatness and I use the word elite, I don't loosely throw it around. That's why when we started the program off, we are such prisoners of the moment. That's right, Yale. He's starting out. That's why when people ask me about Jordan Davis, Sills, do you think Jordan Davis is a butt? No, I do not. He was overdrafted, like I said, as of right now. But we'll see. Better players around him. I think Jalen Carter being around him. Hey, we'll find out. Is he an elite ball player? No. Aaron Donald's elite. Fletcher Cox is an elite ball player. Here, let me give you the guys that you've had that have been elite. You think A.J. Brown's elite? I don't. He had a career year last year. He never had over 68 catches his entire career at any time in Tennessee. 1 year doesn't make you elite. He's showing tendencies of being an elite type of skilled guy. But he's not Jerry Rice or even Antonio Brown. Okay, Tannehill. Well, it's part of the game, Yale. Here. So Yale goes like this. Well, he had Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee. Yeah, Justin Jefferson's got Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. Doesn't seem to be affecting him, does it? You think Kirk Cousins is affecting the greatness of Justin Jefferson? You imagine if that guy played with Mahomes? What if Jefferson played with Burrow? Or if Jefferson played with Herbert? What if he played with Hurts? He'd have 2,500 yards. Can you imagine? I'd rather have Cousins. Okay, like I said, though, we're not calling Kirk Cousins elite. And actually, Ryan Tannehill's actually been to a conference championship game with Tennessee. Okay? He's actually been to a conference title. A.J. Brown's not elite. So you think 1 year of 90 catches and the other years in the 60s and 900 yards as an average, you think that's elite numbers? Where do you think that? Here. A.J. Brown's career is not elite when we're talking about what he's done. Hey, Tone, did you send to Baldy's email address? Did you send it to his email address? Thank you very much. Hey, yeah. Hey, we'll say check your. Should I say check your spam? Let's see that. Check your spam. And we're sending again. Or sending again. So let's take a timeout. Brian Baldinger is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. Strength of schedule is going to be a factor this year. I've got to comment on that. Also, a look at the early 2024, and I got predictions I'm going to make. I may do the predictions right off the top of the block here in hour number 2. 4:30 Eastern. We are going to talk to our friend Brian Baldinger, and we'll get his thoughts here. He's going to call us in about 30 minutes here, so we look forward to that hour number 2. Please hit the like button.